Hey, what's up, everybody? I am back. And mind the fact that I'm not enthusiastic right now because this story is just. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Jeffrey Dahmer has anything on this guy. I mean, if this guy. I mean, just a shit. I can't even think about it. But here, for those of you who stayed for and watched a part two, here's part three. So let's hear what this. I don't know what to call him. Let's just see what he continues to do.
2015 started normal, horrible Nick tweets, and Anna answering questions on the forum. On January 16th, he tweeted out that his therapist wanted him to no longer read his Kiwi Farms thread. Nick also was continuing to answer questions on Ask FM, mostly again about poop, Anna, and butts. But on January 21st, 2015, he revealed he liked to masturbate with poop. He also called himself a pedosexual on this day as well. But then, something amazing happened. On January 30th, 2015, Nick tweeted out, "Dude, what? No, my half-sister herself is accusing me of molesting her. Obviously I didn't, but I have no idea who to defend myself here. Apparently her dad believes her and wants to call the cops. This is not cool. I didn't do anything." He continued, "My aunt keeps calling me a bootit. I can't tell if she believes it or not. But at least she doesn't seem mad, so that's a good thing." He continued, "I guess there's the fact that I've never actually been alone with her, so hopefully I'll be okay. But still, man, this is uncool. Another thing is that if I were to molest someone, it'd be anal, and it doesn't seem like she's accusing me of that. But I'm not gonna say that until I know for sure she's not accusing me of it. It doesn't sound like it, though." In another tweet he writes, "I'd like to know why my B half-sister did this. She had a good day today, getting to go to the mall and stuff." And he concluded with, "I broke my rule and checked that thread because I knew there'd be commotion about this new development. Reminder that I didn't do it." The next day, Nick tweeted out that his mother believed him over his little sister. With the new development, the image board 8kun started a new board excited that authorities had stepped in, and this was around February 8th, 2015. On February 20th, Nick updated his followers on the sexual allegations against him on his live journal. He wrote, "Lately, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of harassment about my sexuality due to certain false accusations about me. People don't seem to understand that just because I'm pedosexual doesn't mean I'm a rapist. I'm a good person, and I just fantasize about children, and it's no different from any other fetish. I wish NAMBLA would step up their game and do some widespread education about pedosexuality."
You know, that's what trips me out is that they have Nambla. They. How and why? I mean, they rent out fucking, you know, halls at different hotels, large hotels, but I believe that it stands for the National Association for Men, the National Association for Men. It was like, what was it again? National Association of Man, like a man boy lovers. And then I forgot the rest. But yeah, National Associations of Man Boy uh, Lovers, something. I forgot the A. But lest, nonetheless, they knew about it. And that sucks so bad that, uh, like, why wouldn't they shut that shit down? Or why are hotels allowing those sick fucks to do this?
To remove social stigma. Even the most liberal people discriminate against us, and it sucks. But then he went back to stalking Anna, posting drawings he made of her and tweeting about fanfiction he wrote about her. But word may have gotten out of the claims against Nick in his town, as on March 6th, Nick tweeted that someone spray painted "Get Out" on his house, and it seemed to not be a fake story for attention. Because then, Nick added that his aunt was cleaning up the graffiti and was mad at him. And finally, on March 10th, we got an update on the allegations against him, with a tweet from Nick that read, "Oh, by the way, a detective talked to me. I'll post about it on LiveJournal whenever I get online. Might be another because of the DST change." He followed up with a journal entitled, "It is not good to be alive." The entry read, "Oh Lord. So a detective and I guess social worker finally talked to me about the freaking allegations. They're convinced I did it. I guess because of the chat log where I said I did it. I told them I was lying in the log, but apparently they don't believe me. They tried to get me to confess, with the promise of a lighter punishment, but I'm aware of how the US legal system works. They promise you'll get off light, but then after you confess, they renege and you're screwed. So I remained adamant and didn't give a false confession. The problem is, no matter how much I deny I did it, and also the fact I've never been alone with her, they still think I did, so I don't know what's going to happen now. For those of you who are Christian, keep me in your prayers and request I don't go to jail or anything. My aunt says I might end up with mandatory therapy. I guess that wouldn't be so bad, considering I'm in therapy anyway, but they'll probably try to make me stop being pedosexual or some crap. People still don't understand there's nothing wrong with pedosexuality. It's just a normal fetish like any other, like me and butt stuff or whatever. I said it in my last entry, but it bears repeating. NAMBLA needs to step up their game. Not being pedosexual would be easier. I would avoid a lot of harassment and stuff, but as you all know, I stick to my beliefs, and the right thing to do is to face my persecution with dignity, like any martyr. I just hope one day the world will accept us." They asked me what all online accounts I have. I can't even think of them all off the top of my head, and I forgot LiveJournal and Last.fm, and probably others I still can't remember. I need a hub that keeps track of my accounts. Well, I had one, but it got hacked. Well, anyway, I'm sure they'll find this through my Twitter, and my Last.fm is Nick Bate. I don't know why my luck is so I'm a good person. I'm nice to everyone. I platonically love cats and volunteer with them sometimes. I've never done anything bad, and my entire life is dedicated to making life better for wife. Why does life all over me? Then as if the day wasn't bad enough, which is ironic because before that, the outlook looked good due to today being a dial a song day. My aunt then made me do stuff around the apartment, like clean up all the vomit, vacuum, and wash the feces off the walls.
Yeah, it's called being a responsible adult, you stupid fuck.
And doors. And she sprayed Febreze or something all over the place, and I'm pretty sure she wasn't careful to avoid my cups that I had sitting around, so knew I'm gonna have to clean them, or else be poisoned next time I drink. It looked like, after 4 years of claiming to fuck his underage sister online and being reported, the authorities were finally getting involved. The people following the story celebrated at this news. Nick decided he was going to defend himself on March 12th and tweeted out, "I just filmed the ultimate video that should prove my innocence. How do I get it to the detective?" What this video would unleash onto the internet would be indescribable horror. Stay tuned. He began to reply to people. In the replies, he described the video and insinuated that he proved that him saying in the chat logs that he wouldn't lick an underage girl's behind because it was covered in poop is a lie because he does have a poop fetish. Therefore, he was not telling the truth in the laws, and therefore, he never molested a child. Does that make sense? He also implied he proved this poop fetish contradiction through masturbation, and that he planned to send this to a police officer. Nick then posted a screenshot of a letter he sent to the detective about being innocent. This letter was screenshotted and was basically illegible. The video was then released online, March 23rd, 2015. I did not watch the video, but I did listen to a description of the video from Internet Cool Guy and Weatherman, Mr. Medicare. This is him describing the proof from Nick Bate.
Case closed. Because, smearing all over my genitals clearly indicates that I'm incapable of molesting children. That is a slam dunk.
That's right. Nick filmed himself digging poop out of a toilet and rubbing it on his penis for a detective to watch. Now, Mr. Medicare did a full description of this video in his video. I will link an archive of that below if you so wish to hear it. I decided that it was something a lot of you would rather not have the graphic description of. Just know it was gross and nobody wanted it to exist. People on the forums reacted to this video dropping in horror. This fapping video ruined the day of many internet posters and lolcow enjoyers. Worst of all, the detective on his case was a female. He had sent a female detective video of him jerking off with his own poop. If you are wondering what Nick's penis looks like, imagine a very small pickle, one of those very small sweet pickles, or even just like a pimple. Yes, I did see his pee-pee. I didn't watch the video in full, but I did see the pee-pee. Nick was absent from Twitter for 13 hours straight at the beginning of April, and Kiwi farmers began to be hopeful that he was arrested. But then soon he returned to posting about butts and feces. On April 7th, Nick answered a question on his Ask FM if he had sexual urges for his underage sister, to which he said he has fantasies, but no urges. Things were building up, especially after the investigation began a few weeks earlier. On the same day as this, Nick tweeted out he was painting his apartment because his aunt forced him to after he rubbed feces all over it. He said the feces had been on the walls for years. He took a selfie to celebrate his day of painting. Some good news came days later. An update from Nick was tweeted out on April 12th. What the hell? I got a copy of the report about me, and it says I've been telling people I did it. Have they even been paying attention? It also says we performed analingus on each other, which A, I only perform, not receive, and B, I didn't even perform. I don't understand. Did the detective not get my email with my evidence or what? Noble Grey Horse posted the crimes Nick was being charged of on April 12th, which read, "The investigation reveals that the allegations of sexual abuse can be substantiated in accordance with the CPS. The redacted account of being forced to perform oral sex on her brother, licking his backside, and him licking her backside has remained clear, consistent, and credible. The blank included details of dates, times, places, and events. This abuse has been ongoing between the ages of 5 and 11. The AP talked to the commander after being informed of the CPSL rights. The AP denies the acts verbally, however writes about the particulars of the abuse in his blogs and to others over the internet. The above situation does meet the CPSL chapter numbers definition of sexual abuse. I'm not sure how Noble Grey Horse got this information, but knowing the outcome, it does seem that this reporting from them is legitimate. CPS was now involved. People were happy, not because of what Nick did, but because it seemed Nick was finally getting repercussions for his actions. Anna seemed excited on the forums. Discussion of Nick spread further to lolcow.farm. Nick continued to tweet as well. On April 15th, he revealed that his sister had now openly accused him of the molestation, and his family was believing her claims. But Nick then began to tweet again shortly after this. No mentions of the investigation, and people believed it was over. But one commenter kept the hopes up, writing, "Don't lose hope because the investigation is over. That just means CPS has nothing more to investigate." Kiwi Farm user Saul Goodman expanded on this. He writes,
At Katsu Kitty has it pretty much exactly right. CPS is not a law enforcement agency. Their investigation was just to make sure safe. Given that sick Nick isn't allowed near her, no further action was needed from their end.
Remember Saul Goodman. He is a legend in this thread. And then came another huge bomb in the story of Nick Poop Bate. On April 30th, 2015, an article from Lancaster Online dropped, titled, "Columbia Man Charged with Child Sex Crimes from 2009. Let's read the article. A Columbia man is charged with sex crimes allegedly committed against a child 6 years ago. Nicholas B. Stotzenberger, 23, was charged Wednesday with 1 count of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse with a child and 3 counts of indecent assault of a child. The alleged sex assaults occurred in Washington Borough in 2009 to 2010 when the female victim was between 5 and 7 years old, according to the Manor Township Police. Stotzenberger was arraigned before District Judge Joshua Keller and sent to Lancaster County Prison in lieu of a $150,000 bail. The internet erupted into cheers. And this is not the last good news in this horrendous story. The docket was soon posted, announcing the charges: involuntary deviant sexual intercourse with a child, and 3 counts of indecent assault of a person less than 13 years of age.
Yep, he's gonna get prison justice. If it hasn't already happened, I don't know what's going on now. I mean, there's still, a good. Yeah, there's like 47 minutes left, so I hope they report something. Usually, I don't like to say, oh, I hope somebody killed this person. I hope somebody hurt this person. I'm not like that, but with him, I hope I hope they own you, and I hope they all beat his ass for doing that to a child. And I mean, any child. I bet you if he would have got his hands on any child that fell within his range, quote unquote, he wouldn't have hesitated. I mean, there's probably. Jeez. I mean, this is what pisses me off about this. This is what pissed me off about the Catholic churches. I mean, does it really take that many kids in order for somebody to step up and really do something? Especially to a child. That's our future. We always want to see our babies grow up to be better than us, smarter than us, and be able to make the right decisions. But when some scumbags like this fucking alter their path in life, all they're gonna end up doing is trying to hide those emotions of what they remember, and God only knows where that's gonna lead them, because that, I would imagine, really will fuck somebody's life, for a very long time. And you'll start with the trust issues. You'll start with the, obviously being frightened of men, thinking that they might all be like that. I mean, I've heard of it time and time again, and I know with the Catholic Church, it's just straight up wrong, because that's in the hundreds. Like I said, I just wonder how many kids, if he did have his hands on a lot of kids, I wonder, how many other kids are out there. Sorry, I'm just so worked up here just thinking about how bad he is. I, spoke incorrectly, but let me just say, I wonder if he had access to a mass amount of kids, what would he have done, boy or girl? I mean, he's gonna get prison justice.
The next date in the court case was set May 4th, 2015, and the news made the front page of the popular site Kiwi Farms. Not only that, confetti was exploding all over the site's interface to celebrate. The next updates came on May 2nd. His preliminary was scheduled 9 a.m. on May 4th. The next day, it was discovered that Nick did not request a public defender, which meant he would be defending himself. Thinking about how he attempted to defend himself to the detective with his video,
Oh my
this
God.
did not seem like a good idea. And interestingly enough, Saul Goodman, the user I've mentioned before, announced he would attend the preliminary, which was to take place in a tiny, trailer-looking building. And on the date of the hearing, Saul posted to the forum.
Operation Shit Eater, Part 1, The Phantom Court Date. I'm writing this update from the parking lot outside the Millersville Magisterial District Court, which, like a lot of magistrate first-level courts in the rural US, is not all that imposing. This one is in a double-wide trailer surrounded by a beautiful dandelion-strewn meadow, and somewhat incongruously, a couple rusting truck trailers. I've been in the business long enough to know that at places like this, you should really call ahead. But in my defense, my decision to undertake this mission was only made late last night. The upshot is that there was no hearing. They put that date in as a placeholder, while they tried to find someone in this bovine-besotted wonderland to defend sick Nick. This is not because no one in the public defender's office wants the job.
He fits
it's
with
just
the
how
bovine.
things often work in places like this. Slowly. The clerk will notify me when the actual date is set. So, at the end of the day, Nick is still in jail. Nothing really happened, and I lost multiple hours of sleep to drive through miles upon miles of manure-scented highway. Although, if I'm to be fair to the cows, it might merely have been the stench wafting across from the Lancaster County Jail. Stay tuned for Part 2.
And then concluded.
Just to clarify, the public defender's office hasn't gotten him a lawyer yet, so the hearing was entirely cancelled. Nobody there but the judge, a couple clerks, and a Mexican dude contesting a traffic ticket.
And with the growing popularity of the story, internet cool guy Mr. Medicare made a video about Nick on May 6th. The video went over the chat logs and told the story in a short fashion of what happened so far. The main theme of the video was that Nick had been openly admitting to his crimes for years, and it was so obvious he was guilty.
So I say to you, the viewer, what do you think? We have Nick Bates, a man who has openly expressed on the internet that he is in fact who has openly admitted that he's had sexual conversations with his half-sister, who was a preteen at the time, who admitted to a woman he was in love with that he had engaged in sexual activities with that minor. He's written songs expressing his desire to rape and have sex with children. I think when you add all these things up, it's pretty clear that he is guilty.
News of Nick's arrest reached further than the Lancaster County headlines and made it to network television. The next news in the trial came on May 13th. Nick got a public defender. And not only that, Maddie, the original leaker of Nick into the lolcow sphere, appeared in the thread to answer questions. She admitted she wanted to make Nick a lolcow by posting him to 789chan, and also admitted it was partially because she wanted attention. And after a bit of a reunion and a trip down memory lane between Maddie and Anna, a new announcement was made. On May 15th, the preliminary hearing date was set to the next day. But after that, there wasn't much news about the preliminary hearing, and nothing interesting happened for a month. But eventually the next court date was set for June 16th, 2015. Saul Goodman arrived to the scene again to investigate for the farms, writing in a post,
Operation Shit Eater, Part 2, Shit Gets Real. I called ahead and confirmed that the hearing is going ahead as scheduled. This time, coming from at Mrs. Goodman's place, the drive took me through miles of nothing but cornfields and cow pastures. Despite some heavy rain, I got here before Nick, so I will have pictures of both him and the party van .tm when it arrives. Stay tuned.
And there he would post the first sighting since he was arrested. Saul posted a picture of Nick looking hairy and overweight as he exited the police vehicle into the courthouse. Everyone was so excited to see the first glimpse of Nick since being arrested. Sure, there were forms and dockets and news articles, but they weren't as tangible as seeing Nick adorned in the bright orange jumper. The memes poured out. And Anonymous posted another update, same day. Formal arraignment was scheduled for July 10th, 2015 at 9 a.m. And after this announcement, Saul posted again, telling the farms he made it to the hearing and was going to drop a doozy of a report of the events of the day when he got home. Upon arriving home, the first thing Saul Goodman posted was video footage of Nick exiting the police vehicle. You thought the pictures excited the internet dwellers? The video was even more satisfying. And then Saul posted an absolute gem. It was in multiple posts. There was no video footage inside the courthouse as the events occurred, but the report this farmer posted made it feel as if you were in the room. Let me read it in full for you listeners. His first post came from June 2015.
In the courts now, so can't take pictures. Nick's B-mom and aunt are both here in support. They're discussing his health insurance and poring over a power of attorney document whose purpose I couldn't ascertain. B-mom also remarked upon her support for Donald Trump's nascent presidential bid. He never really had a chance, did he? Update: A's dad is also here, sitting next to B-mom, who now seems conflicted as she is quote-unquote related to both parties. Update 2. In such a small place, you hear everything. Apparently, the defense Atty is going to make A testify at a preliminary hearing, so A's dad is off to get her. This probably means the hearing will be closed. Whatever humour there was to be found here has just evaporated. More updates as they become available.
The next update came that same day and read,
This is rural PA, and to answer your earlier question that this is not the main county courthouse, it's the magistrate, first level court where things like traffic tickets and arraignments, preliminary hearings happen. Also, my phone's about to die, so further updates will have to wait. However, before I depart, I should share the following exchange I had with the court clerk. Her: Are you a journalist? Me: Yes. Her: With what paper? Me: The Kiwi Farms. We're a website that documents the activities of, eccentric individuals on the internet. Her: Eccentric. Pauses clearly, thinking about sick Nick. I see.
and then he updated again the same day.
Update. I got to attend the hearing. I will make a full report, although sensitive details will have to be redacted, when I get back to at Mrs. Goodman's place. For now, however, let me just say that I got to talk to the detective, the one who received the email. She basically is Olivia Benson in real life, straight from Central Casting. Tall and attractive with a dry sense of humour, but also quite the no-nonsense authority figure. Whatever they're paying her can't possibly be enough. I'll have a full report later, but for now I'll leave you, dear readers, with this tidbit. She did not know about the farms prior to today. She did know about ED. Now she does, as do several other law enforcement officials who were present. P.S. Have video of sick Nick trudging back to the party van. We'll post later.
And then finally, he posted the big write-up. Same day as all of this. This is long, so just listen.
Operation Tita, Part 2, Bravo, goes to trial. Since there seems to be some confusion, my recap will begin with some spurging about how a preliminary hearing works in Pennsylvania and other similar states. A preliminary hearing is not a trial, it is merely a check/balance to make sure that the prosecution can't bring unfounded charges. The standard for a preliminary hearing is that in order to go to a formal arraignment at the main county courthouse, the prosecution must show under Pennsylvania law that there is a prima facie case that 1. An offence has been committed and 2. The defendant has committed it. A prima facie case, on its face, in Latin, means that the state can show the court sufficient evidence that if this evidence is accepted as true, i.e. viewed on its face, the court can conclude that a crime has been committed and the defendant probably committed it. This is not about quote-unquote reasonable doubt or gathering evidence that happens during the discovery phase of a trial or arguing the merits of the case. It is once again merely a check on the prosecution's power to charge people incorrectly/unfairly. They have to show that they have some evidence that, if it is accepted as true, would sustain their charges. Obviously, if the prosecution cannot produce such evidence, it would be inappropriate for the judge to send the case to trial. I mention this background because it is useful in understanding what happened today. As you read this, keep in mind that while the defense has a right to call witnesses and cross-examine the state's witnesses, it can only do so to negate the state's case, i.e. show that even if you accept the state's evidence as true, it doesn't sufficiently show that the defendant committed the crime. Again, this is not a time for the defense to do discovery or question the credibility of witnesses for the purposes of a preliminary hearing. Their testimony is accepted as true. Accordingly, the fact that the hearing went the way it did tells us a lot about the defense strategy. By making the victim testify and pushing her as hard as they can, more on this below, they are sending a message that they're going to go after this innocent 12-year-old girl.
I fucking hate that.
Out. My last update left off with me sitting next to the stepdad, aunt, and B-mum, with stepdad going off to pick AO up from her friend's house, because she had suddenly been called to testify. The three adults do, as several posters have surmised, seem like stereotypical folk. The father, a balding, weathered man in clothes that suggested a physically strenuous occupation, seemed to be genuinely overwhelmed. He commented to me that, quote, "I've never been to a place like this before." I assumed he meant to a courthouse for a criminal proceeding. I replied that I hadn't either. This was indeed the first time I'd been to a magistrate's court in an actual trailer, although I've been to several that were similarly unimposing. B-mum and aunt were genuinely kind and gentle people, not the horrible, intolerant rednecks that everyone seems to think. B-mum even gave me the pen and paper that I used to take notes on the hearing after I was a typical spurg and forgot mine in the car. And this was after she knew I was a blogger/online reporter, and heaven knows the internet has not been kind to her son. That said, she and the aunt are simple folk. The aunt shares the Stautzenberger family teeth, but B-mum seems in surprisingly good shape for her age, and do genuinely seem to have convinced themselves that Nick is innocent. The aunt remarked how all the news reports have been, quote, filled with inaccuracies. Editor's note, rates optimistic. B-mum concurred and said she had turned everything off for a few weeks and wanted to hear more positive stories on the news, given that the father, mother, and AO are still living together. I can only imagine what this state of affairs is doing to the family dynamic. The hearing itself was relatively short, with only 2 witnesses called. The second was the detective, TD, but all she was there to do was the usual, yep, I arrested him, and on these charges. She wasn't cross-examined. The victim's testimony, however, was unnerving, even for someone like me who spent a significant amount of time working in courtrooms. Also, I remarked about TD earlier, almost everyone there looked as if they came straight from central casting. The prosecutor was a pretty and eager young brunette, seemingly fresh out of law school. The public defender was a heavy-set, grey-haired gentleman who absolutely oozed with good old boy charm/sleaze. And as you can see from the perp walk, the constable was a total badass. My oh my, did he rock those shades. The victim's direct examination was relatively straightforward. She told everyone who she was, who Nick was, and what had happened. Out of respect for her, I won't go into details, but I will say that the things she described were brutal and disgusting to a degree far beyond what has previously been reported, and that her testimony was both assured and utterly convincing, which made having to listen to it all the more horrible. However, in the middle of her direct, the Sleazy Defense Counsel, SDC, started in with what I consider to be an inappropriate gamesmanship. He interrupted and asked AO directly to speak up. It was a small room, I was at the back of it, and I heard her just fine. I realised better than most that every defendant is entitled to a zealous and competent defence. I think that's a good thing, a wonderful thing even, about our society. And sometimes a zealous defence means callously working to discredit an innocent 12-year-old girl. But it does not mean actively doing things that, at least from my perspective, serve no purpose other than intimidating her. The prosecutor, while generally excellent, which is not surprising, these days you have to have superb credentials to get any prosecutor's job straight out of law school, unfortunately played into this a little bit, in my opinion, by asking questions that weren't necessary to make her prima facie case, e.g., so when you say you sucked it, what do you mean by that? But it was on cross-examination that SDC got significantly out of line. He began by making her repeat/confirm pretty much everything she said on direct, and then kept pressing her to be more specific on dates, times, logistical details, including such things as exactly how Nick pulled the victim's shirt up. The prosecutor objected, and her objectives were sustained, on 3 different occasions that SDC's questions constituted a quote-unquote phishing in which he was trying to discredit AO and try the case on the merits rather than contest the Commonwealth's prima facie case that a crime had occurred and that Nick had committed it. Obviously, after the victim's testimony, the judge found that the Commonwealth had met its prima facie burden and sent the case over to the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas for a formal arraignment/trial. After the hearing, TD, the prosecutor, the bailiff, and the constable were chatting, and TD called me over and asked about my accent. After chatting for a bit, I asked if I could ask her a question in return. So, were you the one who got the video? She replied that she was, but that Nick didn't actually attach it to the email, but rather, quote-unquote, threatened, her wording, to send it to her. She remarked that she had found it on ED in the course of her research, and while smiling ever so slightly, informed me that, quote-unquote, several of her colleagues have seen it. She asked where she could read more, so I gave her the web address. If you're reading this, detective, please allow me to second everybody else here in commending you for your work. You put in a ton of effort and waded through a ton of muck and filth, both literally and figuratively, to help make the world a better and safer place. Anyway, the long and short of it is that A, Sick Nick is going to be in prison for a long time at the end of this. B, a bunch of people in Lancaster County now know, or shortly will know, about the farms. And C, AO is tough as nails. After dealing with what must be an utterly insane home life, even apart from this case, she seems remarkably well adjusted. It's a real tragedy that she has to go through this.
Amen.
I'll answer more questions later, but for now it's time to distract myself with CGI dinosaurs. It's been a sincerely exhausting day. Good night, everybody.
Well said. Great writer.
It seemed likely Sick Nick would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Not only that, Kiwi farmers were discussing sending the underage sister a present of congratulations. Days pass, and on June 26th, it was discovered Nick's case was transferred to the Court of Common Pleas. Not sure what that meant. I cannot find an archive of this docket update, so I cannot see what date it was scheduled for at this time. July came, and the next date was coming, July 10th. July 10th would be Nick's formal arraignment. In July, multiple Kiwi farmers planned a trip to Lancaster to attend the trial. Saul Goodman was not one of those this time, though. July 10th came, and the dwellers of internet space were eagerly awaiting an outcome. Toasty, a user on this day from the field, wrote, "Okay, no sick Nick for us today. Kind of relieved, not sure how I could handle seeing AO put through anything." It turned out, according to Toasty, that it was waived, meaning Nick didn't have to be there that day, and the case was now going to trial. It wasn't an epic adventure like Saul Goodman got previously. The next change came on July 20th. These were the updates. New court date on docket. Changes. Formal arraignment for July 10th, 2015, 9 a.m., Courtroom A, canceled. Status conference, August 24th, 2015, 1:30 p.m., courtroom, to be decided, scheduled. The next date was August 24th, 2015. Nothing much happened between July and the end of August, and then the new date arrived. Nobody was there for the August 24th, and there was no big change in the case on the day. After this, followers found an inmate number for him, but not much else. This only confirmed he was still in custody, and then a new date appeared on the docket, October 5th at 1:30 p.m. for a criminal pretrial. People speculated what would happen at this date, but what this meant was Nick would spend his 24th birthday in jail. That was an optimistic thing to think about. The overlord of Kiwi Farms celebrated this fact with a banner on the top of the site that read, "Reminder that Nick Bate is still in jail. Happy birthday, LOL." While they waited for the next event, multiple people considered writing Nick a letter. One person was Maddie, who ultimately decided not to. The next court event came, and no one attended, but someone called the jail the next day, October 6th, and found out that the case had been placed on the trial schedule, but no dates had been assigned yet. It was back to the waiting game. On October 12th, people saw that Nick no longer had an inmate number, and began to panic he made bail. But this was a frivolous worry, and Nick remained incarcerated. And then there was an update on the docket. The next court case was January 19th, 2016. Was something going to happen? Are we approaching the end of the story? Well, stay tuned. The forums actually had someone planning to go to this one, by the name of Marvin. Marvin volunteered on December 14th to be the reporter. He expressed how excited he was to make lolcow history. 2015 ended, and the internet eagerly followed into 2016 to see if Nick's little sister would get her justice. 2016. With the new year coming, a new thread was started to count down to the Judgment Day. The thread was started January 15th, 2016. As they waited, people theorized that the other trials were to determine if there was enough evidence to go further. And this led people not to be hopeful for the outcome. There were 2 days of court, January 19th and the 20th, and Marvin decided to attend the 20th trial. After the 19th, Nick's bail was changed from $150,000 to $500,000. Hope and anticipation were bubbling inside the hearts of the followers. It's rare a story of abuse and victimization has a happy ending. People get away with horrendous acts all the time. Children, animals, and more become victim to someone abusing their power, often with no repercussions. It is an unfair world. Much like the previous epic report from Saul Goodman, Marvin posted an elaborate tale of the court hearing to let readers feel as if they were actually there. Let me read this for you listeners. Just put yourself in the shoes. It is 2016. You've been watching a psycho run around on the internet for 5 years, bragging about being a and harassing women. You find out he horribly molested a little girl for years. You've seen some literally, and you just want to see a burn. Now let's read this. Okay, so interesting trial today. Huge wall of text coming. If you want the end result, just skip to the bottom of my post. This took place at the Lancaster County Courthouse. So the floor that the courtroom took place in didn't allow any photography. So you can't catch a picture of someone coming out of the courtroom. You have to hang around the exits of the building, or maybe in the lobby, and catch a picture of them there. Well, either way, they brought Nick in through a special door in the courtroom anyway. So, I don't know if I could have encountered him anyway. When I got into the courtroom, I talked to the detective a bit. She talked to whoever went to the earlier hearing, so she was expecting me, I think. I overhear that the prosecution is going to be having 4 people testifying, and the defense is going to have 2 people testify. testifying. The prosecution also mentioned having a YouTube video, but I didn't get the details on that. Nick Bate gets marched in wearing a yellow jumpsuit and Crocs. He's looking pretty skinny. Also, I thought his hair looked kind of thinning on the top. He had kind of a Charles Manson look to him, you know? So then the trial gets going. First, AO testifies. First, the judge asks if there's any opposition to her testifying because she's under 14. No one objects. Both the defense and the prosecution question AO about the detailed specifics of the allegations. Defense tries a bit harder, I think. The defense seems to be trying to get AO to say that she didn't immediately report molestation to her father, but she just mentioned some weird behavior on Nick's part that her father just inflated. At some point, the defense asks very specifically if AO was being coached. Next, the prosecution puts the cop on the stand. Nothing much of interest is said. Then they put a social worker or someone in a similar position on the stand. I think she just commented on physical evidence. Also, by the way, during the whole thing, it seemed that Nick Bate was shaking, kind of like sustained shivering. Later, I figured it was because he was jiggling his leg, but I don't know. It seemed to be pretty vigorous leg shaking. He was pretty nervous. Next, they put the detective on the stand. They entered some chat logs between Nick and Anna into evidence. I think you guys know which logs these were, the ones where he explicitly admitted to these crimes. They read the chats out loud in the courtroom, a boots included. Next, they put AO's mother on the stand. She defended Nick in really bizarre ways. She said that her husband had never liked Nick from the beginning. She said that he was kicked out of the house in 6th grade. She made a few statements about how after he was kicked out, he was never in the house. Oh, except for Christmas. But
That right there is being between a rock and a hard place, man. So let's just say we don't have all the evidence that they just brought up, and then something like this happens. I mean, if he were to be wrongfully accused, which obviously everything we heard, he's not wrongfully accused, but gosh, to be put in a rock in a hard place with your husband and then basically your stepdaughter, I mean, that is just, that is crazy.
but he was never ever alone with AO. Under questioning, she admitted that she worked. AO was home alone sometimes. Nick was within walking distance during those times, and easily could have been over at the house. Then the prosecutor mentioned that she might have a video of Nick and AO at a birthday pool party that would have been around the time that these crimes were committed. This really didn't faze AO's mother. After all this, the prosecutor asked AO's mother if someone said AO was alone with Nick at one point, would they be lying? She answered, yes, without batting an eye. Then the defense just went and rehashed all of AO's mother's claims with her. Was Nick ever left alone with AO? No, etc. The prosecutor asks, do you love your son? Yes. The defense asks, do you love your daughter? Yes. Fair enough. Next, Nick himself is on the stand. He speaks more coherently than I expected. He claims he made up the molestation story in the chat log. He says that all the Nick parts are legitimately his writing, but that some of the Anna parts were admitted. He also brings up internet harassment and claims he was hacked, and that's how the log was leaked. His excuse about the molestation story is that Anna was telling him about a sex encounter she had. He didn't want to be left out, so he says he made up his own sex story, but no one would believe he banged an adult. So, the logical option is child molestation. After that, Nick admitted to be a pedophile in court, as well as a coprophile. Contradicting what his mother said, Nick said he visited AO for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and birthday parties. After that, Nick admitted part of the earlier claim was that before one of the incidents, AO and Nick were in AO's bedroom, and they had just finished playing Wii, or a board game or something. Nick's mother claimed that they never had the Wii in AO's home. It was always on the downstairs TV. Nick also contradicted that. One question literally asked of sick Nick was, do you enjoy butts or feces, Mr. Stotzenberger? Yes, of course. Nick's lawyer is pretty much setting up the, but I really like poop defense to show that the chat log was fake. Closing arguments. The defense basically argued that lots of people are giving varying stories about the same events. AO can't keep her story straight. Also, AO's father really hated Nick, so he was trying to manipulate AO into getting him arrested for pedophilia. Also, Nick lives in cyberspace, so he's just indulging in his weird edgelord fantasies online. At one point, the words were pretty similar to, why would he say he wouldn't lick a butthole? As we know, he's a coprophile. He'd love it. I don't think they were exactly that, but that sounds pretty close. It at least shares a few phrases in common. The defense was literally using the if he likes you must acquit defense. The prosecution said that AO's stories weren't inconsistent. She remembered important details. She obviously didn't remember the miscellaneous details, like what clothing he was wearing or what they were doing beforehand. Also, the Anna chat matches what AO claimed very closely. AO's mother's testimony is worthless, and very importantly, it's not like Nick is denying that he'd want to molest a child. He's just saying he didn't do it at the time. Verdict: involuntary deviant sexual intercourse with a child? Guilty. Indecent assault of person less than 13 years of age? Guilty.
Oh, yeah.
The docket lists 4 charges, and I only remember hearing 3 charges announced, so I don't know if I missed something or what. Later on, Marvin updated about one of the charges being missing, writing, "Okay, so I've been distracted because I've been out of the country for days. Haven't had much time to post here. Anyway, so I spoke with the detective and got some details on the missing charge. She said that the victim didn't testify completely about one of the charges at the preliminary hearing, so that missing charge got dropped. It's a minor issue, I just wanted to document it here." User Segoy Chan also added in details because they had visited too. They write, "I got there late, just after morning recess, so I couldn't actually get into the courtroom until after they broke for lunch. I was there for closing arguments and the verdict. The judge took about an hour to deliberate. It was a bench trial, not jury trial. After reading his verdict, the judge walked Nick through what happens next, including his appeal options and timeline. I do believe this is what the addition to the docket that @anonymous linked above. The Commonwealth introduced a motion for a violent sex offender test to be conducted on Nick. Also, AO and her father were there for the verdict, as was his mother. The father let out a small yes upon the announcement. I did not see AO's reaction, but I imagine it's complicated for someone so young to see her half-brother go away. Nick seemed to not react when the verdict was called, but he did look at his mother long as they walked him away. Nick Bate is going to prison for a long time, everyone. Segoy also included the detail that AO and her father sat as far away from Nick's mom as you could get while in the observer seating, and didn't stay nearby during the recesses as she did. They bolted as soon as court was adjourned. They were the first ones out the door and were at the elevator before Nick's mom left the courtroom. They concluded, "We'll never know for sure, but I think those actions speak a lot about the state of their relationship." Null immediately responded to the results with,
"Owned."
Confetti was soon added all over Kiwi Farms. It was such a joyous day. On January 20th, it was reported Anna was told of the conviction and was extremely happy because of it. Even more hopeful, people looked into what he was convicted of, and it seemed that he was hopefully going away for a long time. There was to be another court date that was for giving Nick the time he was sentenced to. Nick got a new mugshot taken, and it was revealed in a news article the day after he was found guilty. The article included new details, writing, Lancaster, PA, a Columbia man was convicted Wednesday of sexually abusing a child, according to the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office. Prosecutors presented a transcript of an online chat Stotzenberger had with another individual regarding the abuse during his trial. Stotzenberger is expected to be sentenced in about 3 months, following a background check and psychological assessment regarding his risk to reoffend. People who were excited about the incarceration of Nick posted, including Maddie. Now it's time to wait for the sentencing hearing. It seemed finally a villain got punishment in the real world. And it gets better. It really does feel like a comic book story, except instead of masked villains and heroes, it's a disgusting, filthy pedophile getting justice. So, we are approaching the end, the finale. The pre-sentence investigation was reported sometime around February or March, and it was still a waiting game. While everyone awaited the sentencing, Anna posted something bizarre on March 10th. Nick sent her a letter. She did not read it, and instead sent it to the DA, in case she wants to find a way to keep Nick away from her. She did not post the contents of the letter online. Smart girl. Null then decided he wanted to send a letter to Nick, but Anna was so against it and scared. Null didn't like Anna after this. LOL. This was a letter Null wanted to send to Nick.
"Hi, Nick. I hope you're holding up well enough. I have heard you're able to write again, which must be nice. Seeing something from you after these months of silence was a shock. This situation is surreal. You don't expect things in life to change so drastically after years of staying the same, and then they do.
I have to find
Against my wishes.
Sorry for pausing it. I have to find a USB. Or just, I should find it at the hell, and I just do that. I was going to send it to someone, but I'm like, oh, I need to get it on a USB drive, but I could just give them the account or, just set it private. Because they're real big on not wanting to give out information anywhere, so that's why I was like thinking of hard drive first. But yeah, so they could hear the story, because this is fucked up.
I feel a great amount of sympathy for you. I wouldn't really wish what you're going to face on anyone. I don't believe in America's blood sport of a penitentiary system. Regardless, short of divine intervention, I don't think there's much hope for you in the upcoming sentencing. I'm not even sure what you could hope for at this point. I don't know if your letter to Maddie will be read, and if it is, who will be reading it. I'm personally curious to hear what you have to say. If you reply to me, I will publish what you write online, so consider this your chance to reach out to a large audience. It's a privilege you won't have very often anymore. Good luck. Joshua Connor Moore.
No, I doubt that's
and
the
just
case.
to be clear, he was being nice to try to get information from Nick. After Anna begged him not to, Noel updated it to read,
Julie, get ready. Oh.
The sentencing hearing was finally scheduled for April 25th, 2016. No one attended the hearing from the farms, but the day after, Ann Ominous posted to the thread some great news. I just got off the phone with the clerk of courts for Lancaster County. Nick was sentenced to 40 years, the maximum for his crime, and is eligible for parole in 16 and a half years.
Wouldn't he have a consecutive, though? Because I thought they said he had more years prior to this ruling. So it'd have to be consecutive.
Popped the bubbly. Nick would most likely not get out until he was in his 60s. It's time to celebrate. Kiwi Farms celebrated by making the news the front page of the site. Lancaster Online reported it as soon as the news came out. It was such a joyous day. So many other news programs came out to announce this. The best part is under the Facebook post of the Fox 43 News post, people were wishing the worst to happen to Nick, as he deserves. Everyone hates people who harm children. It said that pedophiles get treated the worst in prison, because even among criminals, there is a code of ethics. Nick remains in prison to this day. His inmate information got updated in June of the year he was committed. Nick looked worse than ever in this photo. Matted hair and dreads, unshaven beard, empty eyes, and thinner than his usual corpulent self. He looked to be haunted, which was satisfying, I'm not going to lie. On August 1st of 2016, Noel actually sent the letter. This was a letter he sent to Nick.
Hi, Nick. I'm writing on behalf of the forum. This letter was discouraged by everyone I talked to, but I'm sending it anyways because I feel like it. This should go without saying. Everybody in every community that has heard of you believes you are guilty, as apparently did the state of Pennsylvania and her people. Just want to make it absolutely clear that this is not being written as a way to allow you to vindicate yourself. I'm just saying hello and allowing you to write expressively to someone who read what you have to say, someone who isn't your appointed lawyer. If you choose to reply, I would like to know 3 things. 1. How are you holding up? 2. Do you regret your online presence? 3. If you could go back in time and change one thing, what would it be and why? I should add that I will not be delivering your response to any person in particular, especially if by request. This is a personal correspondence. Kind regards, Josh. P.S. Please don't use the word a boot.
To my knowledge, Nick never responded. Nick tried to appeal a sentence in 2017 and 2018. Both were denied, and Nick sits there to this day. 16 years from his sentence date is 10 years from now, I believe. 2032. There was a photo that was released rather recently, within the past couple years, of what he looked like in prison. He looked clean-shaven and like he had showered. He looked completely normal, which felt very inappropriate knowing what kind of person he is. And hopefully his appeals will continue to be rejected, and hopefully he will remain there. Conclusion. Prison is supposed to be for reform, but it is doubtful Nick can be reformed. For 7 years, up until he was put into prison, he defended harm to children and pedophilia, claiming it was a sexuality. He took no responsibility for his behavior and instead reveled in his own disgustingness. Nick is not human. He is the embodiment of everything a normal person should hate in the world. He's smelly, he's filthy, he's a child abuser, a woman abuser, an animal abuser. He hits almost every check on the list for things society should not allow. If society wants to function, people like Nick should not exist. But back to the thesis of this video. For years, Nick claimed to be attracted to children and have done actions toward children. People were hopeful that he was just trolling. But as I said in the beginning, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. But I hope Ayo feels safer now that Nick is locked up. And it is amazing. He can't hurt anyone else. So let's enjoy that. But remember, when going online, sometimes it's best not to give someone the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you have to do what's best for you and not try to be nice to someone in fear of hurting their feelings. It's beneficial to not just be trusting online. Make sure your kids know that. I'm sure Anna wished that she had never been nice to Nick after he scared her the first time. Well, that's the end. What do you think?
I'll tell you what I think. I think this is one of the most traumatic stories for me personally that I've ever heard. And I hope that little girl will be fine growing up and just be able to move past it. Just close her mind to it. And gosh, what a fucked up story, man. Again, sorry for the language. It's just sickening to me. Yeah, of course I'm going to run through a couple more videos tonight. So you'll see me back here real soon. Peace.